was Pura, Pura. And I got the name from a carton of milk. That was the name of the milk. It was the brand name, Pura. So I called it Pura fucking milked acid. I remember because Lenny D from New York was coming to Australia to perform, and he was doing that kind of really hardcore gabba kind of stuff. And I gave him a tape, and I made sure the tape was really well designed, and so I thought Pura, I was being classified too much as being kind of just hard acid or whatever it was at the time. And I looked at breakfast cereals and I saw Honeysmacks, and I thought, that's a fucking weird name to call a breakfast cereal for children. It was a Kellogg's thing, and it was like this little bear, and it's called Honeysmacks. And I thought, that's it. It's Honeysmack.
Nice.
It's pure pop culture reappropriation. That was it. I thought, Honeysmack. It's sweet, it's honey, and smack is, I don't know, violent drug. Smack was a colloquialism for heroin. So, and I just kind of dug the name as being kind of dark and interesting.
Nice. So funny. We just went live on YouTube. Apparently there was a button I had to hit, but I think it recorded everything before that, so all good. All good. Apologies, people who are waiting. I think we got 2 people in the chat. Cool. Yeah, so I remember Smacks. I used to eat Smacks when I was a kid. It was like that weird, sweet, like puffy brown corn cereal. They're pretty good though.
And they had it in Australia, I think, but they got rid of it by the mid to late 90s because you don't find it anymore in Australia. I used to eat when I was 20 years old, when I was doing this, not when I was a kid. I would eat what's called Frosties. I think in the States you call it Frosted Flakes with Tony the Tiger on it. Right. And I really love that. I still to this day, I adore the whole Kellogg's, the whole graphic design of their cereals for kids. I think it's fucking amazing. And I really like Frosties, but I couldn't use the name Frosties. I couldn't get the name to work. And it was just Honeysmack. And I wasn't deliberating the name. It was just, Honeysmack. There you go.
So you just kind of like kept changing names, and then how did you figure out this one like stuck? Like how did this one just stick?
It stuck. How did I make it stick? I think I just I just stopped worrying about changing the names all the time. And I think what it was is when my first gig to perform live. That's what it was. And they needed a name for the artist. And I said, just use Honeysmack, and it was kind of stuff.
Yeah. So one thing, I think it's like really hard to settle on a name. And it seems like not the narrative like a conspiracy or anything like that, but just like the thing that is being proliferated is that you have to pick one name and build your brand around it and your sound, and you're like stuck with this sound. So for me, I don't know, I feel like that makes it hard to really decide on something and stand behind it. I mean, I've had a bunch of different names, and some of them I've been like, that was really weird. I can't stand behind it. It doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? And then, yeah. So thoughts on that? Just like,
well, I guess 25, 30 years ago, we didn't think of it in that way. We didn't know what branding or marketing was. We were just trying to be fucking cool and sound different. That's really all it was. We weren't, I mean, these days, I guess we're privileged to understanding the mechanics of the music industry and how important branding and marketing and how that name will define you, for a particular moment in time or period in time. But back then, we didn't think about things like that at all. We just thought we were seeing the music that was coming out of, I guess, the Midwest and the US, and what was coming out of Europe and Germany in particular, and the UK and Belgium, and just thought, oh, okay, let's try something kind of futuristic, escape from this, monotony, whatever it was. We didn't really think too much of it. I know that for a moment in time, I went under the name DJ Speedball. And I got the name from how is it John Belushi died? He died of a speedball, which I know it was, again, it's drug connotation, but I've never taken a illicit drug in my life. So I'm just interested in that whole, that kind of subculture. And I was a gabba DJ. So that's how I started. I was playing really fucking hard gabba. And that's the kind of shift to Honeysmack as well, because I thought, I used to write this column in a music paper in Australia, and it was DJ Speedball. And I used to review this gabba that no one would listen to. No one even, the majority of people never knew what fucking gabba or this ultra hardcore dance music was. But I wrote in such a way that it was just kind of humorous, and people loved it because of the way I was describing this stuff. And I guess that's where Honeysmack made this appear, because I said, you can't, I'm not this fucking speedball guy, it's just a fucking moniker. I do, I love disco and house and what have you. So I thought Honeysmack was more amenable to capturing a wider audience.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, that's hindsight, I didn't think like this so deeply back then.
I have to say, I think you're killing it on the Instagram. You're definitely you're posting a lot and getting tons of views, and you have a lot of followers and stuff, and it's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have to say that I was really not anti, I just didn't give a fuck about social media. I just thought it was, I don't know, but Instagram lends itself really well to what I do. I mean, in my studio, I just can hit record and have the audio go through my phone, and it's there. Again, because of being an improviser and being in the moment, I'm not precious about my music. So, as I've spoken to you in the past, it's all this is just a moment in time. I don't, I don't save things. I don't try to replicate. And that's been a double-edged sword for me. So when I was signed to large labels, they wanted, I would say, a particular form of DJ music or popular electronic music. And maybe I fluked it in the 90s. Maybe, I don't know. But I wasn't I hated arranging things. I really hated arranging things. I think it's the most, how do I say this? It's the most painful process as a musician, regardless of genre. I think it's rather painful. For me, it was. And I didn't know it at the time, but even the tracks that I did that were popular, for one, Walk on Acid, which shot me to kind of mild fame, whatever it is. I sampled Burt Bacharach. It was all improvised. It was literally just, a recording. I just hit record on the DAT player, on the DAT machine, and that was it. Just topped and tailed it. I didn't have a computer. No computers. So going back to social media, the whole Instagram thing is just really easy to just capture that momentarily. And I'm not precious. It's like, well, you'll love it or hate it. And it's a way of showing momentum. And I think that's particularly in the climate that we're in right now. I mean, Melbourne, we're in lockdown at the moment. And it will, we're lagging behind the rest of the world. And even last year as well, during the pandemic, you've got to show people what you're doing. You really have to, even more so, because there's no gigs. I've got a board here, I think I've told you, full of gigs. I was supposed to be in Sydney tonight, or last night, for an opening. So when I speak to early career artists who think that this is the end of the fucking world, and it's like, no, it's not. You've got something that other people don't have. You have your creativity, regardless of the genre again, or your practice. Do something, make something. Got a really itchy nose.
So do you post? Do you try and post every day, or multiple times a day, or do you schedule things, or you just is it kind of a habit
No,
at this point?
you know, really, I've tried scheduling things because someone told me, oh, algorithm or whatever. It's like, oh, it's just, I don't believe it. You know, I just don't believe it. I think some people like certain things, some people don't like other things as much. You know? Um, really, when I record something, it's when I put it out, you know, or that I will have recorded a bunch of something. Oh, okay, you know, I'll post that, I'll broadcast that now. So there's no, I don't think about it too much at all.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I might hold off an hour or two or something like that, you know, or I'll review and go like, was it any good or not? I say I'm not precious, but I kind of think, oh, that's shit. And I'll tell you, the stuff that I think is really shit is the stuff that is the most popular.
Yeah.
So it's actually it's a good measure. It's a great feedback service because I realised, oh, they like that, you know, which is good. I think
You know, it's really
and the stuff that I've you know I've worked on and I feel like this is fucking amazing. And it's like it's got like you know 200 views or something. So you just don't know.
that's funny. So you had told me, okay, so we had talked about the SY05 and you had told me about you're like you could trigger it with a drum pad because it's literally a 1-to-1 clone of the Pearl Syncussion, even on the trigger side. And so I have a pad and I hooked it up and I tried it. And I just made this video like with my phone. I was like, oh, real quick, I just want to show them I did it and that it works and it's really cool. And I put it as unlisted and then I showed you and you were like, this is amazing. I was like, okay. So I made it public and then I came back the next day and it was like 600, 700 views. And I was like, what? The audio is garbage. And like, I was like, this is not, you know, it wasn't like an intentional thing. And anyway, so.
And that's I think that's the whole thing about music making. It's I think that you know having taught music at an academic level um, here in Melbourne, teaching composition, even though I'm not traditionally trained again, it's more about the idea. If you've got a great idea, then it's bound to resonate with people.
Mm.
And I find that a lot of students I come into contact with, regardless of genre, are really focused on a kind of technique. It's like no one gives a fuck about technique. It's like if you're making music for your parents to judge or your grandparents, great, fine, you know, or you know, full respect to them. But these days, with the tools that we have available, technique doesn't matter anymore. I mean, technique got you to the conversation. Technique got you to the party, but it won't elevate you. No one is listening to your music and thinking, geez, they played that F chord really amazingly. No one cares because people are hearing the sum of all its parts. And I had that dilemma when I was a young artist as well, because I perhaps had this guilt thinking like, oh, is what I'm doing music, you know, but I'm not doing anything kind of special. But I was, because it was my filter, was that background of the punk and the disco and all of that was feeding how I was touching a particular device. I mean, like, you know, how many guitars have we got? How many different types of guitar music? And I think the great thing about electronic dance music is it's only been around 30 odd years. So we're still in this kind of very early evolution of it. And I think I'm eager to hear more stuff.
Mm.
I was just fortunate, I guess, that I came at a time when this was all emerging, but there wasn't a label for it. There wasn't you may also like on the internet or anything like that. You had to go out of your way. It was literally a physical journey to experience it, to buy it, to play it. You know, nowadays it's like you may also like, or there's an email, or have you heard this? I think I said this to you before. I said, if anyone showed me that when I was a late teenager or an early artist, I'd say, fuck off. Like, you can't tell me what I like or what's cool. The whole thing about being cool is not liking what other people like, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You might be the only one. That's how it is here for me. It's like I could, yeah, there's nobody within probably a couple hundred miles that are even in the same ballpark.
Yeah, and I look, I'm not anti whatever it is technology by any means. I just think that we are inundated with more and more music, which I think is a fantastic thing. But to find the pieces of gold can be a bit harder
Mm-hmm.
because there is more music and it's constantly probably fed to us. You know, one of my big frustrations being a music academic was mentoring students, whatever the genre was or whatever style or practice they had. And I'd say to them, oh, go and listen to Goblin or something like that, you know, Italian prog band or something. And they'd be on their phones, you know, on Spotify, trying to find Goblin. I'm like, no, 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 no. Get off that and do some real research.
No.
I'm not against Spotify, but it's not all music is available on a particular platform. And sometimes you have to search deeper because that's what we did. We would buy records when we were kids. We'd go to, you know, with a friend, we'd go into town and we only had a certain amount of money and your friend had a certain amount of money. It's like, okay, you buy that one and I'll buy this one and we'll swap tapes and you'd buy something going, oh, fuck, what is this? This is shit. You know? And sometimes you couldn't even listen to the record. So a lot of the time you're making decisions based on artwork. That's why we liked metal, because metal had like amazing covers.
Yeah.
Buying Anthrax, like I fell in love with Anthrax. It's like listening to, well, I discovered Anthrax early, but Among the Living, I'm like, these guys are singing about horror movies and shit, and this is fucking awesome.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is since music is so disposable now, just because it's like essentially free uh, to a listener. Um, I don't know. Like I don't know if people have enough time to get hooked on something and to really get it like embedded into their psyche because you know I was so I'm in this video game class and the idea is we have to go look up some soundtrack music for video games or for movies. And I started thinking about it. I was like, you know, I don't know any of the melodies or hooks or anything to any of the movies that have been put out recently. I mean, Harry Potter, maybe, you know, uh, but Top Gun, you know, I know exactly what that 808 in the beginning sounds like, you know, that's like ingrained into my brain, you know, so
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
anyway.
I guess that's with a lot of movies and media these days. A lot. It's a lot of very safe and feeding uh, what they feel the audiences will like. I remember, you, you, you know, I believe you can't make music to a specification. You can't make music that people will like. And I know that's a pretty broad statement, but if you're trying to appeal to a particular audience, you can't make music for them. Even if you got a survey and you said, okay, I'd like to know the particular sound, the arrangements, whatever it may be, and you've got all that and you've written it all down. I mean, lots of YouTubers can tell you all this already. Well, you've got all that information and you make music based on those specifications, people will not like it because they've already moved on. Because of the things you're saying. You know, music is really transient these days. and recorded music. I mean, recorded music is like, I have a strange relationship with recorded music. I can't stand it, but it's a necessity because that's how you learn about new music and new artists. But the value for artists in recorded music, I have a problem with it. And people saying, "Oh, Spotify and these streaming services, you're only getting 1 cent." It's like, if you got into this business to make money out of recorded music, then you should find a different job. Well, I mean, maybe in the 80s. But the Spotify works on the same model that the record industry were using 30 years ago. So it's not anything new. And I think it's rich for people to say, well, I should get this amount of money or that amount of money, regardless of whether you're an early career artist or a really big pop star. I think it's, people will pay whatever they want. And Spotify, especially for young artists, is helping young artists get their music out there. So any platform is a good platform. And if you want to make money from this, well, you're not going to make money at this moment in time. You need to have a big picture. Sorry, I'm summarizing a lot of things. So everyone's going to say, what the fuck is he talking about? But, hi.
Speaking of which, we got a couple people in the chat. We got about 6 people. If you have any questions, you're definitely welcome to ask. I have the chat pulled up here just in case anybody does ask any questions. You're more than welcome to. And so right now we're just kind of talking more like philosophy and business, but yeah, we'll get into some like synth stuff and some technical stuff here in just a little bit. I know that's some of the juicy stuff people like to talk about. Let's see.
Because I think it's connected. People want, and I appreciate that people want to resonate with an audience, and they want people to like their music, and they want to feel that what they're doing has some value, and that will then relate to how you're making it and what you're using, and all of those things are all important. They're all part of the same package, I guess. But my high level advice is that you don't make one particular song or track or piece of work and you're reviewed for it for the rest of your life. That happened 300 years ago. It doesn't happen anymore because of how transient music is and how quickly music is turned around these days. So I think what has become more important these days is that artists have a body of work and can continually show people this library of work. Look at all this work I've been doing. Because we don't know where our successes will come from. Remember, like the whole social media thing, Instagram. Things I think are shit is the stuff that's really popular. So you don't actually know where your successes come from. But the more you do, and the more that you can point people to try different things, the more likely that you will gain some success. It's like when you walk into a shop, you walk into a clothes shop. And if you're just looking for one specific thing and they don't have it, you walk straight out the shop. All right? Fair enough. Nothing wrong with that. But if the store can keep you there long enough and show you all the different types of clothes and goods or shoes, whatever it may be, then you're likely to perhaps buy something. And I guess we need to borrow from that as artists making music. The more you can show people, the more they've got something to select from and possibly they will resonate with and or buy or pay to come and see you perform.
So I just refreshed the page and actually we have a ton of questions. So let's go here. Let's see. Welcome everybody. Yeah, so this is it's been an interesting experience trying to figure out this whole Skype into live streaming thing. So I just refreshed this page and let's see. Yep, Techno Jam says they agree with you on the arranging music thing. Yeah, arranging music is just like so painful. It actually turned me off to making electronic music for a while, personally.
But the other thing is that I also love arranging. Here's to give you the inverse, because what I do is I arrange on the fly. I'm actually arranging in the moment in time. When I say I hate arranging, I hate computers are shit. Sorry, computers are not smart. They're not intelligent, and the whole thing of this linear way of making music is really, I think it's really challenged and horrible. Not for me. I prefer to be hands-on and turn something, move something, and see what happens, and then use that as a way to jump off to the next part.
Let's see. Someone's Yukayo said, "Keep it simple. Eat your cereal, pick a name, and do something."
Fair enough. That's right. Yeah.
Stephen Anthony said he noticed the same thing with his ASMR channel. Videos he spent a lot of time on and effort with would get like 200 views, but ones he posted as a joke and paid no mind to would wind up getting tens of thousands of views.
Exactly. One of the things that kind of helped me understand this, I'm sure everyone knows the band Kiss. Right? Now, when I was young, I used to love Kiss. Okay? But what was Kiss's biggest track? It wasn't a rock and roll track at all. It was a ballad sung by their drummer. So I guess in marketing terms, we call it the what's it, USP, your unique selling proposition or sales proposition. So if you work within a particular genre or style, and I'm not just talking electronic dance music, it could be anything. What are you offering that's different? And young artists say, well, I've got the guitar and I plugged it into my ear instead of my asshole. It's like, well, that's not really different, because what we're hearing is the same kind of thing. So what I'm saying is it tends to be technique, and it's not technique. It's the sum of all its parts. It's not just technique. I don't want to completely discredit technique, because it's important. We all need some form of technique, but that's not what will sell or make you stand out. So it's the idea. It's how this is different. I mean, when you listen to the stuff when you discover the music that you really love as musicians and composers and performers, you start to realize, actually, the way they did that, or he or she did that, was really simple. They didn't have a studio full of gear. They weren't privileged to amazing studio facilities or anything like that. It was rather kind of rudimentary.
Interesting. All right, so I don't know if I'm Caragal / Steak and Eggs asked, "What is your favorite all-time synth and module?"
All of them. Well, I'd have to, to answer that question. So I get asked quite a bit. I'd have to say is the 303, because it was the gate. That was the door that I passed through. Was the 303. It was the 303, the 909, the 808. Those three things. That's how I started my career, and that's how I'll end the career. And my wife knows that when I die, that I'll need to be buried with those three things.
Nice.
Or the 303. I don't want a big 808 sitting on my chest. I'll leave it to my son. Okay?
Oh, that's right. How old's your boy? He's 5. That's right. Is it? You got him in the studio, any?
Yeah, he loves playing with the kind of Volkers. He loves playing with Volkers, and I pull out the booklet easel, and he can just play with anything, and he just loves. Oh, what's that?
Oh, lucky kid, man.
Yeah. And my son, was born at 3:03
Get out of
p.m.
here.
and weighed 808 pounds.
No, no.
I swear to you.
Wow,
I'll go get my wife to verify.
that is awesome. Has Roland said anything about that? Did you tell Roland?
No, but I wanted to call him Roland. That was one of the names. He ended up becoming a Raphael. And the other name I wanted to call my son was Disco Disco.
Mm.
Yeah, Disco hyphen Disco.
As a first name?
Yeah.
Nice.
My wife would
No, she was.
Fair enough.
Oh man. So I'm gonna take it one more step further, because this is actually a question for me: is what is your favorite 303 iteration that's out?
Every single one of them.
All right, I knew you were gonna say that.
Because and like this is a serious answer. I'm not trying to be a smart ass. I never played a 303 clone, replicant, whatever you want to call it, that I didn't like.
Mm.
Never. It's and when people ask me, not you particularly, Tom, but I do get questions from the public who say, how does it compare? Like, how the fuck does it compare? Like, are you doing a science experiment for high school? What happens if it doesn't compare? You've got nothing to compare it to. It's an odd question.
Yeah.
And everyone asks me all the time, what 303 clone should I get or what have you? It's like, get whatever you can afford.
Yeah.
Just get something. When we were making music, what a lot of people may not understand is that we weren't buying a 303, an 808, and a 909 because of the way it sounded. It's like, that's all there was. We didn't have anything else.
Yeah.
It wasn't. We didn't have the privilege of software and all these amazing synths that are really cheap. My studios, because gear is unbelievably cheap. There are expensive things, I understand, but the access these days is unbelievable. When I was a late teen trying to buy music technology, we go into a store, they're not talking to us. They kick us out because we're not real musicians. We're just time wasters. Nowadays, we have stores that are just dedicated to making electronic dance music, which is amazing. And I'm friends with all those things. And all those brands. So I think we live in amazing times, and it's not just about, and by the way, it's just turned 3:03 p.m. in Australia right now. There you go. I think it's, who's going to buy a 3:03 for, how much is it in the US? $3,000 US, $2,000 US, whatever, 4,000? It's ridiculous. This is like collecting guitars, like middle-aged guys collecting guitars. It's like, go buy a Behringer 303. They're awesome. I've got 3 of them. You know what I mean? It's like, although I was beta testing one of them, I think a friend bought one, and I think I bought one when it first came out. I was like, it's amazing. If I was making music right now, it's like, you've got so much to choose from. It's amazing. Mm-hmm. Love it.
I think one thing that people get hung up on is that they'll look at like a Juno 106 and be like, oh man, that thing is like, $2,000, $2,500 US, and I'm like, well, when I got mine, it was $200, and I needed to fix it. So I think, yeah.
Well, if I show you, this is the thing that I do quite a bit. I go and grab this. I'll be off camera now, but I bought my first 303 was $40 Australian. So that's probably the equivalent of about $30 US.
Shit.
Back in and this is my first 303 that I bought, and it's still got the sticker from the previous owner. His sticker saying that the subject was music.
Nice.
Okay. So that cost me 40, 50 Australian dollars. And the second one was $150 or something. And the point here is that, I mean, I did buy the 303. I was already making music, and I didn't connect the 303 to Acid. But it was still at a time when this gear was cheap, before it was becoming vintage and collectible. But just make music with it. Make music with a DAW. It doesn't matter. I mean, Ableton. I mean, far out. You've got access to. We have access as human beings. We have access to every sound imaginable. Now, that wasn't possible 10, 15 years ago or 20 years ago at all. And sample CDs were really, really expensive. Nowadays, you go online and you've got access to samples. So we didn't have that either. So I think that's why, even more so these days, why things like, such as, say, modular synths are coming back into the fore, because it's a way of, you know, designing your own instrument and creating your own sounds.
Cool.
Like I just bought, I told you, the Soma Pulsar 23. And I can tell you that I haven't heard a good demo of it yet. So that's a way I measure things. If it's a bad demo, there's no good demo, so like, this thing is going to sound good. And you know why? Because the way people demonstrate gear is not the way that I will use it. Right? So, and a lot of people keep asking how it sounds. I'm not interested in how something sounds. I'm interested in how it operates, how it will manipulate things over time, because that's the part where I'm making it all come together. How it sounds, I mean, far out. You could say most analog synths all fucking sound the same. You know what I mean? To a certain degree. I've got my Juno 106 sitting here right next to me. It's got a dust cover on it. I haven't played it for 2 or 3 years. I can't play keyboards, and I just turn it on just to make sure it works. But yeah, how does it sound? I don't know. How does it sound? You're judging it on the internet. You know, you're judging someone who has put something on the internet, and you're not paying for it. The way we used to get information was we used to buy magazines, the UK, like Sound on Sound and Keyboard magazine, and I think in the early 90s there was Electronic Musician. And these magazines their audience weren't schmoes like me. It was professional musicians who were buying this gear that was really expensive. But that's how we kind of learned about it, I guess. That was our education. We couldn't go online and read about, what is analog or subtractive synthesis? Huh? What module should I buy? What is the best sounding 909? We don't have anything like that.
Yeah.
We had what I had and what my mates had, and I'll borrow this and you can borrow that. Okay, cool. See you in a month.
Hey.
I've lost drum machines because I don't know who they went to.
Yeah.
I had a Korg drum machine. I think it's now worth some money. It's like, I don't know who I lent it to. I can't remember. And other bits and pieces. Anyway, it's all good. What comes around goes around. It's all. Yeah.
So, can I borrow a 303?
Absolutely. Which one?
I'm just kidding, man. I'll lend you my SP1200 for collateral.
That's one thing I never had in one of my studios was an SP1200. I had friends who had SP1200s. But I used the Ensoniq EPS 16 Plus, and I still got my ASR 10, or my third ASR 10, I should say. But I don't do I don't sample anymore. Very rarely do I sample.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing sampling, it's really just I'm sampling in real time, just remanipulating things on the fly. And sometimes when I perform, I'll have like a loop from a popular track and just disintegrate it, just to breed some familiarity with the audience. but it's not something that I'm focused on anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I was heavy into like old school hip hop, so then I got one about 6 years ago before they really blew up. Um, but I thought about trading it for 808 and 909, but I got talked out of it. Someone talked me out of it.
No, I don't.
Don't do
No. As your advisor, I advise.
it. Why is that? Because I mean, I think the 909 sounds incredible. Like the kick drum, yeah.
But there'll be enough. There's enough clones of the 909, but the SP1200, you won't be able to buy that again. Whatever you sell it for today, you won't be able to buy it again
That's true.
for that
That's true.
amount of money. Whereas 808, 909, all those the bread and butter of electronic dance music. I think in my PhD, the research I did was there's been 2 hardware clones of the 303 since its demise in the early 80s. So my last count was there was about 65 or 70 hardware clones of the 303. That's not counting the software clones.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's pretty amazing that this commercial failure became the accidental hero of electronic dance music and became the electric guitar of electronic dance music. I remember like in the late 90s, people would say, "Oh, you're still not using 303, are you?" It's like, yeah, I am.
Nice. um, we got a couple more questions here. Doc Sample, what do you think about Bandcamp? Seems like the best deal out there for artists. Although, yes, agree they are all kind of bad.
Yeah, look, I don't think they're bad. I think it's the wrong way to describe it. But these services are there to benefit the organisation, whoever they may be. They're not there to benefit the artist at all. Whilst it might have the look that, oh, one may be more better for the artist than another, that may be fair of someone like Bandcamp. But again, the problem is not the service. It's this whole idea that you think people will buy your music, you know? And I know that sounds terrible, and let me just qualify that because I think I don't believe that money is the measure of success as an artist. I really don't. I think that's something that the tabloids have done. I think that's something the record industry did, not the music industry, the record industry did. And artists really have, some artists have this entitlement. Oh, I'm going to put something out and someone's going to buy it. And, I applaud any artist who gets lots of money from sales on Bandcamp, wherever it may be, or record sales. It's just not my motivation at all. And yeah, I mean, I buy music on Bandcamp, but when I'm mentoring young or early career artists, and they ask me, this is a question I get all the time, how much should I charge for how much? So you want someone who doesn't know you to pay something for your music. Think about that for a while. Sorry, it should just be free. It should be free. If you're trying to build an audience, you can't build an audience by asking them for money. It just doesn't work because you've created an obstacle to the path. And the internet has provided this complete access to your audience, but now you're kind of inhibiting by saying, oh, well, you got to give me at least kind of $5 or $2 or $10. Doesn't matter what it is. We all know, we've all been there. It doesn't matter if we're comfortable, we're rich, we've got jobs, we don't have jobs. You look at it, even if it's $1, you go, you take that, you don't think about it, but it's that moment pause because then you have to pay for it. Then you have to go to PayPal or your credit card or whatever it may be. You're creating another step, I guess. So my best advice is just give it to people. When you're big enough, let people book you and allow a promoter to collect the money from more people and give you some of that. But to ask for a couple of dollars, it's like, how does that couple of dollars even equate to the work and effort that you've put into your music? You've been making music your whole life. You didn't just make it at that moment in time for that half an hour, or 3 hours, or 4 weeks that you've been, meticulously working this arrangement, or crafting the sounds or programming the sounds. No, you've been doing it your whole life. That's what Curtis Rhodes said, right? So how does even $5 or $10 or $20 for that piece of music benefit you? I don't know. I don't look. I'm an older guy, so that's the way I see it. I'm sure I'll have criticism, but that's what I think. And even if your music is fantastic, how do people know if your music is fantastic if you are creating an obstacle to its path? Mm. I don't know. That's the way I think. And Bandcamp and all this, they're all kind of the fucking same to me. I see this thing on Bandcamp Fridays. Oh, well, we won't charge you the 30 cents or whatever. It's like, oh, really? Well, you're doing such a public service. You're not the fucking Red Cross or anything like that. You're not this charity. They are a successful organization or business, and they have this content. And yes, they are providing a service to musicians, and they take a fee for that service. I have no problem with that, but I guess it's not about those services at all. I'm on Spotify, and people who think that Spotify actually send you a check for 0.0001 cent, that's a fucking lie, because you don't get it like that at all, right? So I think my suggestion is to reverse the way that people are thinking about it, particularly early career artists, which is, this will give me access to an audience. I can get to an audience by using these platforms. So I guess don't think of the platform as being the vehicle for you. Rather, how can you use these vehicles? How can you use these platforms to your benefit? Because I'm telling you, next year there'll be another one, and the following year there'll be another one, and there'll be another one, and next year there'll be artist Pang, and there'll be musician Poof, and there'll be Beat Source 3, and there'll be something else, because someone always wants your money, and they need content from people like us. It irks me that I give Instagram all this content for free. It does. To give you a balanced argument, it irks me. But you know what? I'm using it to my advantage. And if it helps promote what I do and who I am, great. It costs them money to develop the platform, so they should get money too.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Let's see. All right, Steak and Eggs again. That's Ree Carrigal. Outboard
steak and eggs.
Steak, yeah. Could use some steak and eggs right now. Let's see. It says Outboard Gear. Do you do your own mastering? And if so, is there one particular piece of equipment or software you recommend?
Again, my answer is whatever you can afford. Again, mastering is not going to make your track great, whatever everyone thinks mastering does. Again, it's one of these processes. It's part of a finishing process. As long as it's loud and it sounds aligned to the music that you like, that's all that matters. Again, no one's going to go, oh, that's not mastered very well. And anyone who says that who's not a mastering engineer is a fucking dickhead, right? Because they don't know what that process is at all. Now, I know some mastering engineers, and I don't even hear it come out of their mouth because it is what it is. You know, outboard gear. I don't really have much outboard gear. I have the outboard gear that I have are old Alesis 3630s, which are really old compressors. I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got about 5 of them. I don't really use them all that often anymore, but I've got an old Mackie 8-bus desk. I don't, and I've got a Model 1 DJ mixer, which most of my stuff goes through. Again, these days I'm going back to the way I used to make it, which is I just record stereo out. That's it. It's that moment in time. I've always tried to, split stems and all of that, but I ain't going back to a piece of software and rearranging or remixing or anything like that. I mean, Post Acid was recorded at Carl Cox's studio, and we stemmed out, I think it was like maybe 4 or 5 different stems, just to be able to mix it perhaps a little bit more, with a little bit more detail. And there's absolute value in that, of course. But again, it's the idea, Can people hear the idea? If you haven't got an idea, it doesn't matter how expensive your gear is or what software you're using. But to answer that person's question about mastering, I don't tend to do my own mastering. I don't. But if I'm doing something, say, for my own platform, I'll just run it through Ozone or something like that. And it'll just be like a preset, but it's very subtle. And I will literally spend less than 3 minutes. Even if it's a 10-minute piece, I don't spend much time. Again, it's effort in and the result out. I don't think that mastering is going to make or break a track whatsoever. So it's just really just to perhaps, curb some of the low end and make sure it's loud enough and bright enough. That's about it. And again, you got to be careful because there's a lot of people on the internet, and there's a lot of internet experts about everything, particularly when it comes to making music. I think what's more important is that someone finds the approach that works for them. It doesn't matter what you think the rules are, because there are no rules, and we're privileged that we have access to all the software and hardware these days. And there's some great software emulators for outboard gear and all of that. And I've heard the stories. And it's like, yeah, okay, maybe, but it depends what's running through it. If the track ain't great, do you ask, what guitar did you use on that recording? Do you ask what guitar was used on a Metallica track or whatever?
Yeah.
Big picture as opposed to small picture. Sweat the big picture, not the small picture, is what I'm trying to say.
And speaking of guitars on recordings, I've asked that a few times, and like the answer is like, it's this shitty Squire guitar that I got at my friend's garage sale, and it had some weird modded pickups in it, and it sounded, stuff like that.
It's like, I remember before I had a 909, I was using the ASR 10 as the sample, and I had it all sampled, and everyone would tell me, where'd you get your 909? Or, because they were hard to find in Australia at the time, even back then. And I would just go along, no. And then when I got one, so again, it doesn't matter. If it's close enough, then close enough is good enough.
Yeah. Interesting. Let's see. So Yukayo said, these days you need to be happy if people spend their time listening to your music.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's great. If someone will listen to your music, that's really, really important. Really, really important.
Yeah.
And it's because I remember when we were young, we didn't even have monitors in the studio. We had hi-fi speakers. And we didn't even know that, hi-fi speakers were shit. So what we did was we had a recording of our track, whatever, on a tape. And we would carry that wherever we went. Friend's car, put it on. Friend's place, put it on their stereo. And that's how you kind of start to understand how something sounded on other people's, on all the different, um, stereos and hi-fi systems or what have you. And that's the way you learn about it. Then there was a stage where, oh, okay, I need to buy studio monitors. And then you'd be buying the cheapest ones. We didn't have the privilege of having all this money or anything like that. I mean, you see all of this, but this is 30 years. You understand? This didn't happen 8 months ago. Now, I wouldn't be buying all that vintage gear for that stupid amount of money. It's like, why? No, why?
So I'm gonna ask you, but I already know the answer. But how do you like the RD8 and the RD9? I guess the RD9's not out yet. Still?
I love them. I was a beta tester for them, so I guess I'm biased. I think they're an amazing. I think they're a great evolution of the original as well. I mean, having polyrhythms and that filter, but it still captures the spirit of the original in the performance aspect. I mean, people ask me, "Oh, how's it work over MIDI?" I'm like, "What? Over MIDI?" It's like there's this thing called samples. Haven't you heard of them? You're able to, software comes with it. I think the value in these machines, again, from my point of view as someone who improvises with hardware, it's performability, and that's the thing about that's why I love hardware. I guess also when I started, we didn't have computers, and that's how we learnt, was using synchronizing sequences, hardware sequences. So I think that's what the great thing about the RD8 and the RD9 is, they capture the spirit of how it's performed. I think also the Roland TR8 did that really well as well. Those sliders, and it was just really quick to program. You could just get your ideas out of here into sound, from your hands into sound. I think that's really, really important, as you probably can tell by this conversation.
Just want to remind everybody that's in the chat that you're welcome to ask questions, and we're just kind of going through them as we converse here. Yeah. Let's see. So could you talk about the okay? So Awesome Soundwave. I looked into Awesome Soundwave. It's Carl Cox and Christopher Coe. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
And I've been thinking about it for the last couple days. Just they're trying to capture the live improvisation thing we're talking about, and then I guess putting it out in like a record format. Is that kind of yeah? So
Totally, because even Carl is loves the whole thing of performing with gear and all of that as well. So yeah, their ethos is the live artist as well. So if you don't perform live, it's almost, that's the first qualifier. You've got to be a live artist. Chris Coe, I've known Chris for 30 years. So Chris is an Irish fella who has lived in Australia for a long time. And Chris is also a live performer, and I've known Chris from back in the day in Melbourne. So he's a close and dear friend. And I remember when he was starting the label with Carl, he says, "Oh, we want to get you on the label, yada, yada." And I remember I sent him some stuff. And again, everything I do is improvised. And I wasn't quite sure of the ethos or the direction of the label. I didn't ask, didn't know. I sent him some stuff and said, "Oh, this is the kind of thing I'm doing." It was kind of modular and all that stuff. Oh, and he said, "Oh, yeah, look, yeah." He goes, nah," kind of. What I could hear there was some hesitation there. And I said, "Look, Chris, I can't make DJ music. You want DJ music? I can't fucking make it. Can't do it, right?" And I said everything, I kind of explained what I've been saying for the last hour or so. So he said, how about you come to the studio and we'll just record you for a couple of days. So great. So we worked out a time. I literally kind of grabbed a whole bunch of gear and thought of it as kind of just like a live set that I was going to record over a couple of days. Went to the studio, set it all up, and I had Chris, who was engineering it, and I had my co-producer with me. So there are two people that I trust. And I just started playing. I said, hit record. Once we got the recording set up, which didn't take too long. All right, hit record. And I just started playing. And then they would say to me, oh, stay on this, stay on this, stay on this, whilst I made coffee and come back and kept playing and playing. So we recorded about over 2 days. I think it was about 11 hours worth of stuff. So what we did was the three of us went and listened to it back after a month or so. We listened to it all and we kind of compared notes. And we all had the same notes, which was, okay, this could be a track, this could be a track, and this could be a track. And that's how the album came about. So, yeah, the recordings were, the tracks that ended up on the album were true to the recordings, or to the performance, I should say.
Did they end up doing any mixing and mastering, etc.?
Yeah, so my co-producer, he mixed it all. I was in the room whilst he was mixing it, because there were some things that we had to add or subtract, or some things that were missing and things like that. But they were kind of minor. They were kind of top and tailed, and had the privilege of being mixed by different ears. But I was there on a different system. So,
yeah. So the sound of this of the record, did you go into the project because it kind of has like a more of like a tribal kind of really dark kind of feel? I mean, did you go in with like an idea of how you just went in and did it, huh?
I just had a modular rack of just the gear that I had at the time. I took a 909, a couple of 303s, a couple of electron boxes, and just started patching and recording, literally. So it's just it really is just a moment in time. And I thought, I'm gonna have to write down this pattern, and I'll use it to I'll perform it when the album comes out and all this. I'm like, fuck that, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But there is a remix package coming out at the end of the year on vinyl. So there's a couple of remixes for the track Entity. So that's coming out. I know it's gone into production, the vinyl itself. So.
Sick. So I have some questions from the Discord. This is again Yukayo. I'm always curious how much of a live techno set is set in stone and how much is improvisation. And if it is all improvisation, do you pre-listen or cue in headphones? And if not, how do you go from one sound and one pattern to the next?
I don't cue anything at all. I actually don't have. I could not. Queuing comes from DJing, and I'm not a DJ because I'm not interested in crafting what comes next. So I create happy accidents, and I make the decision in front of the audience, literally. Again, there is no right or wrong. So I've completely and utterly dismantled that. There's no right or wrong. It's what I choose to do. Yes, it is all 100% improvised. I do not know what I'm going to do until I start playing. When I go out to a venue or I'm playing at a festival or what have you, the most important part for me is when I turn all this gear on, I will think about how am I going to start? and I'm thinking about the energy that I'm seeing, and I think, how am I going to start? How I end, I have no idea. And it's fair to say, yes, things like the 303, I can't program live, and certain drum machines will have pre-programmed patterns, but I don't use those patterns or sequences in any specific way. So I'll literally just change the pattern, uh, kind of, when I feel I can change the pattern. But I don't know what's coming up. I used to have tiny little notes. This is what I'll show you because it's actually printed like. So I have tiny, can you see this? Tiny little notes like that. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And all I've got is like these patterns that would say things like stab, dub, synth, stomp, electro, Detroit, LFO. They're completely arbitrary, but I don't even do that anymore. It's just like it literally all comes together in the moment. So what's important is what I do before I get to the show, which is, that's why the Instagram thing is I'm constantly playing with my instrument. And the instrument is the studio. So it's kind of knowing the nuances and muscle memories and things like that. Because what I do here and what I do out in front of an audience or what I then hit record is completely different. But it is literally 100% improvised. It's literally turn everything on and go. I don't save anything. I really, unless some of this gear you just can't perform because I can't actually play keyboards or anything like that, will have a sequence in them. And it's just something that I programmed at the moment in time. And when I'm here in the studio, I'll just kind of change it if I have to. I'll randomize and change the pattern until I'm happy. But it's the happy accidents. I'll just hear something and go, oh, that's cool, and I'll continue with that. Otherwise, I'll hear something and go, oh, that's fucked. I'll stop. I'll reset. I'll do this in front of the audience, and they know it's real as well. Mm-hmm. And again, when I perform on the floor, or what they call it, boiler room style. But I was doing that for boiler room. Sorry, I'm not trying to. It's really important that people see what I'm doing. They may not understand, but it's really important that I play on the floor, on the dance floor with people around me. If you're putting me up in a DJ booth or up on stage out of the way, it's like, get a fucking, book a DJ. Otherwise, they got to see what I'm doing. And I guess in the early, the early parts of my career, I did play on stage, but I tended to play on stage where people could see this array of gear and they could see something was going on. But if it was a DJ booth, I wouldn't play. Mm. And even back in the day, lots of promoters would say, oh, can you give me a demo tape? It's like, no, I can't, because what I do on that demo tape will be completely different. And it'll be completely different, not only because I'm constantly improvising, but I'm also changing the gear as well. So certain gigs, I'll just say, I'm going to take these two drum machines and this synth, and then I won't take that one, I'll take this one.
Keeps it fun.
Yeah, and particularly with Eurorack and modular, I mean, you're constantly redesigning and buying, redesigning. So, I mean, that's why I bought the Soma, not because of the way it sounded, but the whole approach, which is there's no memory. There's no pre-recorded memory. It's like literally what you've recorded. It's all volatile. Stuff like the Moog DFAM. There's no memory. And I use two DFAMs when I play live sometimes.
I heard they're pretty incredible sounding. I haven't got to mess with one yet.
Fucking awesome. Yeah. My second one came from a friend who was throwing it out.
Oh, no.
He threw it in the bin. And he said, if you don't come and get it, the bin's being thrown out tonight.
Oh, what?
True story.
That's amazing. That's how a lot of Rhodes pianos got picked up, and synthesizers. I hear stories of, people just throw out the keyboard. They're like, oh, it doesn't work anymore, it just needs some basic repairs. But
that was the 303 that I bought. The guy thought it was broken, and it was just take it.
I have one story. I found a 505 in Hawaii. There was some guy on Craigslist. He's like, I'm gonna take it to e-cycling. I was like, no, let me come get it. But
The sound of cologne is the 505. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately, I don't have it anymore. But all right. Next question from Doc Sample. How do you keep it all straight in your head with improvising on all the different equipment? Also, how did you decide to use the Model 1 mixer?
How do I keep? What was the first question? How do I keep it all in my
How do you
head?
keep everything like straight? While you're improvising. I mean, I guess that's
There's nothing is ever really straight. I guess with techno and acid, it's a kick drum and everything else is kind of window dressing. So I guess as long as the kick is going, everything else that's the anchor, I guess. And I tend to view areas of my instrument, and it's a studio instrument. I'll look at it kind of as areas. I'll focus this area, the next area, then this area, then that area. So that's how I keep focus. Because I'm not focusing on, well, I am focusing on the whole thing, but I don't, again, I guess the question comes from people who work in more traditional ways, which is, oh, this is doing this part, this is doing that part, this is doing that part. Whereas for me, there's no rules. And there'll be times where I'll just be focusing on the 909 and nothing else, or maybe just the 303, or the modular synth and one or two voices, something like that. So it really is keeping it simple. It's not complex. The complexity comes from the different layers of sounds. And when I'm performing, there's things I go, I can't even tell what is going on. There's so many different layers. And that's where I find it, oh, that's that. Okay, well, that is now a jump off point for me. Or an accident has happened. And that's the, how did I end up using the Model 1 mixer? I swore for 30 years I would never buy a DJ mixer. I swore black and blue I would never buy a fucking DJ mixer that are so fucking expensive. I just don't understand it whatsoever. But during the pandemic, a friend of mine let me his Model 1 mixer. This was last year. Oh, that's kind of okay. And then Pioneer lent me the DJ VJM, the other 6-channel mixer. I thought, oh, these are all 6-channel DJ mixers. I could use 6 channels as a. So I borrowed the Pioneer one, which was a monstrosity. Also sounded very good. And then I borrowed the Zone 96 mixer, the Allen and Heath. Then I was fortunate at the start of this year, I think it was February or April, I did a gig. And I normally just use little Mackie mixers. Or sometimes I don't use a mixer at all. I'll just mix everything through the Octatrack. Again, it depends on the show. So this was kind of a bigger show, and I used the Mackie mixer. And I remember showing it completely well. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm really fucking missing those filters on the Model 1. I don't have that thing to grab and to perform. Because the mixer becomes part of the performance, just like dub. The mixer is always, the mixer is not this rudimentary device. It's actually how I arrange stuff. Taking stuff in and out and turning the effects on and off, up and down, through the sends. So I realized after that gig, I'm going to get this fucking mixer. So I rang up the distributor here and they said, yeah, we'd love to get one in your hands, no problem, right? Well, I said, I've got a gig coming up and I need something in like, 2 weeks. So they got me one and I did this great gig, was in March, I think it was. That's the last gig I did, actually. And that was the gig that just went viral. And so that's how I got to using the Model 1. And it's Not even a DJ mix. It's like an old desk.
Mm.
Old analog desk, yeah. So I love it. It's really is performable.
Yeah, that filter scheme it looks pretty cool. It's like a different, way different. Um, that gig, is that the one that's on your website, the big picture?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So as part of one of my classes, I had to analyze about 6 artists' websites, and so yours was in there, and that was like a big sticking point. Was like the question was, well, do they have pictures, and what do they have pictures of? And it's like that's like the one main picture, and I'm like, that's it. That's all you need. You just need that one good picture because it epitomizes everything that you do, and like people are having a good time. There's a bunch of people. You're on the floor, so yeah.
That's right.
Let's see. Cool. If you're just tuning in, just a reminder, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Um, so back to keeping it straight. We had talked before, and you don't count. You don't count either, right? You don't count bars or.
I don't know what they are. Like chocolate bars or. No, I don't count because a lot of what I do there's polyrhythms and there's no way to. Plus, I'm not a counter at all, but you wouldn't be able to count. And I've heard people, musicians who are drummers and things like that, say, "Well, you're doing a great, 75 over 13 or something." I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It's like that's what it sounds like.
But yeah, it's really interesting. Is like when you do throw something in like 7/16 or whatever, it eventually loops back around to like starting right on the beginning. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, sure.
Go from one kick to the next kick.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. So anybody have any other questions? How much you got time, or you want to wrap this up, or what you want to do?
I think we get close to wrapping it up because I might need to go to the bathroom and.
For sure. Um. All right, guys. So you heard it. If you have any last questions, go ahead and throw them in real quick. There's a few people in here. Let me see if anybody in the Discord said anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my the big picture message for all this is stop overthinking what you're doing. It's just there's no value in it. The things that we think are very close to us because we're the ones making it, but the audience don't tend to hear that. And I'll say they don't tend to hear it. It depends what we're talking. I'm trying to be quite broad. But I think the most important thing is just get it out there. It's so important. I know it sounds really dumb and stupid, but the most important thing is that you're doing something. There's one thing that divides hobbyists to professionals. Hobbyists are always working on something. They're always working on something. It's never done. It's always working on something. That's part of being a hobbyist. They're always putting together a model, or they're always working on a piece of music, or they're always doing something in the studio. A professional, it's done. It's finished. It's out there to be judged or what have you. That's the line, and that's what I believe tends to be the biggest challenge for early career artists and young artists, even for tried professionals as well. Oh, it's not right. It's like, where does this construct come from? Right, according to who?
Yeah.
Yeah. The most important thing is you're not going to be judged by this one piece of music or one performance. It doesn't matter. What matters is the sum of all its parts. Give people something to point to. Oh, they don't like that. Oh, you try this thing. Oh, you didn't want jeans. You wanted a shirt. Oh, here's a shirt. Think of the shop. Huh? Oh, you want to buy a comic? No, I'm looking for some ripe bananas. Oh, the bananas are over here. You just don't know how people. And if someone doesn't like your music, it's got nothing to do with how you've made it. People don't know how you've made the music. I mean, the internet experts will tell you everything, but doesn't matter. If they don't like it, it's not about what you've done. It's about how they're feeling at that time and their experiences. When you see stupid comments on social media, it's not about you. They don't know you. Some guy just called me a neo-Nazi.
What?
On YouTube, right? It's like, how fucking hysterical is that? I mean, it's so stupid. But the thing is that he doesn't know me, but I don't go to him and say, "Oh, excuse me, no, I'm not. I'm actually Jewish background, and my family actually, most of my family were obliterated by the Nazis. That's why I'm in Australia." But you don't do that either. So, yeah, it's this. People too worried about how they look. It's like, pull the curtain down. It's fine. The main thing is you're doing it. And there's lots of people who aren't doing it like you are doing it. So let the world hear it and see it, and something should come of it.
And I'm a prime example of that. So
we've all been. I've been like that as well. I'm just as guilty. It's something that we all feel.
Yeah. The thing.
Don't feel bad. Just move on.
Yeah. And you never know who's watching or listening to. I got a nice surprise. I got an email from Alex over at WMD, and so come to find out, the guy that does the programming for their he programmed the Metron, he did the programming for the Scalpel. Well, he's a techno guy, and he's like, oh yeah, he's been like checking out your channel for a while now, and he's like, we should send him something. Like, whoa. What a nice surprise, right?
I knew about your channel before I'd met you. I didn't even put it's like, remember when we first met, I'm like, hey, I just watched your video like literally last night.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Let's see. Okay, so Yukayo said, thanks, man. All great advice. Adam B, big acid smiley face. Techno Jams, great advice. Great. EHOS, maybe that's ethos. Oh, there we go, ethos. Yeah, great ethos. And Yukayo, really feel like making some music and having fun now. So, yeah.
If you're not having fun, you're not having fun. Don't do it. Do something else. Yeah. I do this because I have great fun. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. Money's not a motivator when it comes to the arts. Everyone needs money. Make no mistake. We all need money. But doesn't tend to be I don't think it should be the motivator to make music. This is the trade that I have. So I've been doing this for 30 odd years. When I started doing it, did I think I was doing it up until now? I couldn't see past a week in time when I was 19, 20, 21.
Yeah.
So amazing that it is now, it's a popular practice, and I think it's amazing. I think it's fantastic. It gives all the people who are listening and watching license. So just fucking do it. That's all you have to. Don't think of Nike. Just do it. Literally.
Yeah. And you can tell, like, you're having fun in like all your videos. I mean, like, you can tell.
When I perform, they know that I'm having fun. That's what I'm not trying to replicate something that has, preceded. And I get, oh, did you record that? Like, I don't record it. When I perform live in front of an audience, like, the promoter's not recording it, I ain't recording it. I don't have time.
So you did a dissertation or a thesis on kind of, maybe talk about that for a second and like what your plans are.
I'm trying to get it published. So I did what's called, because my research is practice led. So what I do is part of the research. I'm not theorizing about what I'm doing. I'm actually explaining what I'm doing and why and the outcomes. So we don't call it a thesis. It's an exegesis. Is the actual term. So that's why there's some writing, and there's also a folio of music and videos and what have you. So my PhD, the title was Baccarat, Brittany, and Acid Techno Bangers, the evolving compositional practice of Honeysmack. So it's kind of some of the things I've been saying today, well, a lot about what I've been saying today, and about how I make, acid techno, and how I perform and improvise. Yeah. So I'm trying to get it published because it talks about acid and techno and as well, and some of the gear as well. So I'm in the process of getting that published.
Mm. Do you have maybe like a timeline? You think maybe in the next year?
Oh, I hope I will get confirmation within the next, say, by the end of the year. I'd like to know what's going on.
Mm. I look forward to that. Let's see. Adam B. I put next to nothing out there, and the positive community response to even a 30-second jam on Instagram is always so pleasantly surprising.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think all these platforms are great. You've got to exploit them. You've got to exploit these platforms. Yeah. If you don't, and if you're overthinking, should I post it? Should I? It's like, just post it. There's nothing to, what's going to happen? Is someone going to come to your house and shoot you in the head? No. What's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario, someone's going to say they didn't like it. Well, it's got nothing to do with you. They don't know you. Unless it's someone who you, revere their opinion. But someone doesn't like what you do, it's got nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
They don't know you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, do you ever see big name artists try and dismantle social media comments? No, because it looks bad. And if they do, you go, oh, that's fucking odd. You don't do it. You just don't do it because anybody on the planet can say whatever they want about anything at any time. Doesn't mean it's of value. These platforms does not make it valuable. Just because someone is posting something doesn't make it valuable. And that's me as well. And it's just like asking someone in the street about the government. It's like ask a random person. Oh yeah, they're fucked. Well, how fucking boring, Why would you say something negative? It's just stupid. It's just shits and giggles. So yeah, it's a strange thing because I didn't grow up with any of this. So, and it's weird to see that people are so worried about a stranger saying something about you if they don't know you. What? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
If it's your mother saying, "Hey, get off this. What are you doing?" Well, maybe, or someone you really revere, maybe. Okay, but most people won't do it on social media. They'll ring you up. Right? They'll use this device. They'll use a telephone. Remember how we used to communicate? Hello. They won't say it on social media.
Mm.
So I think the more people dismantle that and not worry about those kinds of comments, the better they'll be.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I think let's wrap this thing up. If you could just end and kind of just tell us, what's next for you. I mean, obviously we're in this pandemic thing and you're on lockdown again, which really sucks. So I guess, what's
next? Well, I'm doing I'll be doing lots of different streams for different people. I'm constantly asked to play live, online for people, but I kind of have to think about, because I have a commodity now that everyone wants, because you can't watch a DJ stream. I mean, the fuck are you watching? It just doesn't make sense. But with me, it's obviously it's improvised and it all sound different. I know there's some things that are familiar. Sorry, excuse me. So there's lots of that going on. There's the Entity remixes coming out at the end of the year, towards the end of the year. Looking at a board of gigs, thinking when will I start performing at these festivals. There's lots going on. There's lots of activity on my Instagram and Facebook. So I know it sounds really corny, but it's almost just like a week at a time at the moment. But there's always lots of activity. I've got the new Soma thing. I'm doing I'm doing lots of beta testing for modules and other hardware as well. So that's always really, I mean, there's so much for me to do here. It's insane. So yeah, and trying to find someone to publish the PhD or a form of it as well. So yeah, you've got to keep moving, keep momentum, But this is what I do. I'd be doing this even if we weren't in a pandemic. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Can't wait for the next live gigs. Absolutely itching for it. That's from Adam B. Doc Sample says, let us know when that gets published. Would love to read. Yep.
We should all go and follow me on, plug here. Should be going to my Instagram because that's the one I use quite a bit. So it's _Honeysmack_, or you just do a search for Honeysmack. I'm sure you'll find me, and that's where I'll communicate all this stuff as well.
Yeah. And then I'll be sure I'll post your links and stuff in the description after it uploads.
Yeah. There is another Awesome Soundwave stream coming up as well, because just as we've been talking, Chris has just called me, so he probably wants to tell me some more info about that as well. So there's lots of that stuff as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. David Haberfeld, aka Honeysmack.
Thank you, Dr. Tom Jones.
Not there yet, working on it.
Everyone's a doctor.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share everything and your philosophy and everything you've done for Acid House and Techno, and currently what you're doing and really inspiring people. I'm totally inspired right now, and I know a bunch of people are. They're going to be, and the people in the chat, I know you guys are inspired. You've already said that you're inspired. But yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time. In stream, let's see.